that we did have something that could be special. But like I just told Matt, nobody expected us to be in this position, to be 12-3, to win the North. Other than James Jones, probably. There's not many people who thought this was possible, just with so many moving pieces and new players and a new scheme. That feels pretty good, for sure.
We've got a resilient group, a group that doesn't blink, doesn't flinch in tough times, and sticks together. And that's what we talk about all the time. And it's a credit to that locker room, and I couldn't be happier to be their coach. So with that, it's a tough place to come into too and play. The crowd was electric, and we knew it was going to be tough. And that's a damn good football team. So just real happy for our guys. That was one of our goals, is to win the division. But I think there's more out there for this football team, and now it's time to reassess those goals and move forward.
Well, here's what it is for Green Bay. Right now, the 2 seed. So they can clinch a bye with a win or a Saints loss. They can get to number 1 with a victory and a 49er loss to the Seahawks on Sunday night. The Vikings, they are the 6th seed. That's not going to change. The only question is, where do they go and who is the 3 seed? Tom Pelissero was at that game late night, back with us now on NFL Now. Let's give credit to the Packers here, Tom. We talked yesterday about how they haven't really been wowing anybody offensively. Well, they won yesterday without an Aaron Rodgers touchdown and with a pick. No touchdowns and a pick. First time that has happened all season long, because they kept on running the football and Aaron Jones helped put the Vikings away.
Andrew, I sat down with Packers coach Matt LaFleur last week, and I asked him about the criticism that's been lobbed at the offense and Aaron Rodgers and kind of the growth process that you have to go through in a scheme that we've seen other quarterbacks and other offenses struggle with a little bit in year 1. He pointed to some of the missed opportunities, such as deep passes that they're just not connecting on. Said if you want those sexy numbers, you got to make those plays. But another thing LaFleur pointed back to was we have to be more consistent running the football, because that's where this entire offensive scheme begins. Well, you look what they did yesterday, exploiting a Vikings defense that lost Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr to injuries. They run for 184 yards, most of that by Aaron Jones, who I think is still running somewhere in Minneapolis right now, untouched. And that also opened up some things in the passing game. Devontae Adams had a dominant night. The play-action game was working well. That's what this offense is supposed to look like. And you have to give credit here to Matt LaFleur for the way that he has led not just that offense, but this team this year. This is a guy who, Andrew, a year ago had one head coaching interview. He was the last guy that the Packers talked to. They saw something in him, thought that he would be a good match with the quarterback and the team. Obviously made some big moves in free agency, especially on defense, bringing in Zadarius Smith, who sacked Kirk Cousins about 52 times last night. But the way that he's guided this team to an NFC North title, 12-3 record in year 1, it's very impressive.
3.5 sacks, technically. Just to be specific here, 3.5 sacks for Zadarius Smith. However, he and Preston Smith, for that matter as well, Kirk Cousins' former Redskins teammate, were living in the backfield. And I'm torn here, Tom, torn between criticizing the Vikings offense because of the stats and the fact that Kirk Cousins is 0 for 9 now on Monday Night Football, and praising the Packers defense. I think the answer is both can still be true. Here's what the Vikings said yesterday after a mere 7 first downs.
Our defense played at a very high level tonight. Certainly they played well enough for us to win the football game. But we just weren't able to put it all together. So disappointing loss at home. And so we've got to regroup and now get ready to finish the regular season strong at home next week against the Bears.
I'm not going to get into this Kirk Cousins on Monday night thing and all this stuff. Offensively, we didn't play as well as we can play. I'll say that, okay? And defensively, we could have played the run better. So there's a lot of things that we need to clean up.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it either, but I think we have to. And I have been one who has defended Kirk Cousins. Yeah, they lost on Monday night a couple of weeks ago in Seattle. His numbers were fine. He played well enough. It didn't happen. They lost to a good team at a tough place to play. It is hard to argue, though, with this kind of sample size now, 0-9. And Tom, you saw it with your own two eyes right out of the gates there. You had the fumble. Anthony Barr hits Aaron Jones. They get it, short field. All they get is a field goal. The crowd's loud. It was deafening. And that was kind of the highlight for the offense.
And in the second half of that game, Andrew, it was quiet inside U.S. Bank Stadium. Quieter than I've heard it probably in any game, particularly one against the division rival where you still have an opportunity to win the division title. The game it reminded me of was Week 17 last year when the Vikings were playing for a playoff spot, were completely flat on offense, couldn't run the ball. Kirk Cousins was a sitting duck in the pocket. They missed some opportunities for plays. It was almost a carbon copy, and some of the numbers are actually very similar as well. The good news for the Vikings is, unlike that game against the Bears, which kept them out of the playoffs a year ago, this is not the end. You would hope, if you are Mike Zimmer, Kirk Cousins, and this team, that you can learn from that game going forward. They have risen to the occasion against other good teams, against Dallas, against Kansas City, against Seattle, albeit in a loss. And remember, they did not have Dalvin Cook last night. They didn't even have their number 2 running back, Alexander Mattison, who was out with an ankle injury. The Vikings like Mike Boone. Mike Boone is not Dalvin Cook. There's a reason Cook is one of the best young running backs in the NFL. That is a huge chunk of their offense that was missing. And I'll tell you this now, they are locked into the 6th seed, which means that they're not going to Philadelphia or Dallas. They're going to face whichever of those top 3 teams, or 4 really, but 2 of them, the 49ers and Seahawks, are playing for one spot. They're going to face whichever one of those teams does not get the first-round playoff bye. Whether they are going to Green Bay again, whether they're going to New Orleans, whether they're going to San Francisco or Seattle, this is a team that when they are closer to full strength, we have seen them be dangerous. They simply weren't last night.
Yeah, and by losing that, I'm glad you point that out. There are 3 possibilities now locked into the 6th seed, and one of those possibilities is having to go to Green Bay, the wild card round, and face the Packers again after only 7 first downs at home. First time that has happened in a game for the Vikings since Nixon was in office. Thank you, Tom Pelissero there. After a tough one for the Vikings, and the NFC playoff picture now looks like this. It bears repeating because it's the easiest one here. If the 49ers beat the Seahawks, they are the without anything to talk about on Christmas Eve. You would be wrong. Welcome to a 2-hour holiday edition of NFL Now on NFL Network from our newsroom in Los Angeles. Good morning. Happy holidays to you. Good afternoon back east. I'm Andrew Siciliano. Coming up, as long as he does not get stuck in the chimney, Marshawn Lynch is showing up for Christmas in Seattle. We'll have the details. We're also going to hear from Jason Garrett as the Cowboys now need help to make the playoffs. And we have the new power rankings. I'm guessing the Cowboys are moving down in those. Dan Hanzus here a little bit later. Let's get the news, though, from around the National Football League, and let's open up with what is new right now, and it is Marshawn Lynch. The announcement came from his agent, Doug Hendrickson, in the 4th quarter of the Monday night game last night. He is back, and he has a 1-year contract to play for the Seahawks. It's really kind of a 1-year contract. That's a 1-day contract and a 1-week contract, but you continue into the postseason as well. This is from Mom on Twitter. Congratulations to my son for being the true warrior. Go, Sean. It's going to be great to watch you enjoy your craft. Marshawn Lynch's mom, excited. I think everyone in Seattle is excited. I think everyone getting ready for game 256 on Sunday night is excited. I'm excited these guys are working Christmas Eve. Mike Garafolo, Tom Pelissero. Gentlemen, hello to you both. Mike, start with you. How this whole thing came together, because it wasn't just a guys get injured on Sunday, let's call Marshawn. This has been in the works for a couple of weeks now.
A couple of weeks. I'm going to top that. How about a couple of months, at least on Marshawn Lynch's end? The Seahawks were aware that this is something that once it was clear to him that he was not going back to Oakland, that he would be interested in if the opportunity presented itself. I had actually heard these rumblings all the way throughout and was told, watch out for Marshawn back in Seattle if the opportunity presents itself. Now, they had a deep backfield, and they had a guy in Chris Carson who was basically the hammer for them, so not necessarily a need to bring in Lynch if you already had that type of inside physical runner, but he's gone, and Rashad Penny's gone, and they have a lot of holes to fill inside that backfield, which is why they brought in Lynch and Robert Turbin as well. That's a pretty good story as well, but we're forgetting about that because we're so focused on Marshawn Lynch. But the Seahawks kept that on the edges, the periphery of their radar for a couple of months and said,